Hi Prof and everyone, I am Wushi from Tutorial 1. We all heard about the war in Ukraine and the Middle East and its devastating effects regularly. These conflicts dominate our attention and stir global action. But amid all this, a far more catastrophic war is barely even whispered: the Sudan Civil War. According to the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, the New York Times ran almost 10 times as many articles on Gaza than those about Sudan, and more than 13 times as many articles mentioning Ukraine in the same duration. Currently, 150,000 were killed in Sudan, with 10.5 million displaced. The UN said it is one of the worst humanitarian crises now. Even as billions of aid dollars pour into Ukraine and the Middle East, the Sudan crisis cannot even garner $2.7 billion as requested by the UN, although it needs the assistance most. As Alan Boswell of the International Crisis Group starkly puts it, you can't help but watch the level of focus on crises like Gaza and Ukraine and wonder what just 5% of that energy could have done in a context like Sudan, and how many thousands, tens of thousands of lives it could have saved. In this video, I hope to shed light on this underreported story. I will go through Sudan's background and how the conflict started. I will discuss why the world has largely ignored the suffering in Sudan, and why we should focus on the conflict. Sudan is Africa's third largest country, with 50 million people. Its governmental structure is highly unstable, with military coups and civil wars tearing it apart. Historically, Sudan has been divided along racial and religious lines, compounded by decades of dictatorship and regional marginalization. The conflict erupted in April 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces (SAF) and the Rapid Support Forces (RSF). The SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, is the national military. The RSF, commanded by General Mohammad Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemeti, evolved from the Janjaweed militias, originally recruited from Arab tribes in Darfur. The RSF is a paramilitary force established by Sudan's longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir in 2013. It was designed to solidify his rule by balancing Sudan's security apparatus. Al-Bashir created the RSF as a counterweight to the SAF, ensuring no single entity could overthrow him. Despite its official incorporation into the SAF in 2015, the RSF retained significant autonomy, bolstered by independent revenues from gold mining, which allowed it to maintain military strength and political influence. The war started due to bureaucratic rivalry between the SAF and the RSF following the collapse of Sudan's transitional government, which was established after overthrowing al-Bashir in 2019. The trigger for the conflict was a security sector reform aimed at merging the RSF into the SAF. It aims to unify the country's military forces under one command, but Hemeti perceived it as an existential threat to the RSF. The integration will eliminate RSF's autonomy and reduce its political power. The SAF sought to dissolve the RSF to preserve its national military dominance, while the RSF, fearing elimination, resisted the merger. Both the SAF and RSF are working towards maximizing their own interests instead of prioritizing national interest, which is preserving the stability of the state. As both forces roughly equal in military strength, this bureaucratic rivalry spiraled into open war rather than a typical political power struggle. Sudan has experienced civil wars that used to be the world's focus. In April 2006, then junior Illinois Senator Obama spoke on the Save Darfur movement. Quote, "If we care, the world will care. If we act, then the world will follow." But now, that attention is gone. And here is why. First, war fatigue. With many ongoing wars such as in Ukraine and the Middle East, the world's attention is very divided. Sudan's civil war takes a backseat due to the internal nature of a civil war and its nature of endless civil wars. Second, low priority on international agendas. From a realist lens, states prioritize their national interests, particularly power and security. For Western countries, conflicts that do not threaten their strategic, military, or economic interests tend to receive lower attention. The Ukraine war, for instance, directly threatens NATO's security due to its proximity, raising concerns over European stability. Similarly, the Israel-Palestine conflict is vital to the US as Israel is a non-NATO major ally, and it is crucial to secure an essential ally in the Middle East to project influence in the region. Furthermore, Houthi attacks on vessels in the Red Sea threaten global trade, as 15% of maritime trade passes through this region, making it an economic priority for the West. These factors place the Sudanese conflict lower on the international agenda, as it lacks direct threats to Western strategic or economic interests. Third, no just cause to support. Both SAF and RSF committed atrocities. According to UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, both were responsible for patterns of large-scale violations, including indiscriminate and direct attacks by airstrikes and shelling on civilians and crucial infrastructures. Both used starvation as a war tactic. Human Rights Watch interviews with aid workers described that SAF imposed a multitude of bureaucratic restrictions that hampered humanitarian work, adding to the suffering of populations in conflict areas. RSF repeatedly attacked and looted aid supplies and humanitarian infrastructure, such as the World Food Programme warehouse in December 2023. This attack affected supplies that could have fed 1.5 million acutely food insecure people for a month, said the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. We should care because of the immense scale of human suffering. 150,000 were estimated to be killed in the conflict according to the US Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing in May 2024. Sudan has the largest internal displacement crisis in the world, with 10.5 million displaced, and around half of which are children. 25.6 million people are facing acute hunger and in desperate need of humanitarian aid. The sheer magnitude of this crisis demands global attention, as it surpasses many other conflicts in terms of human cost and devastation. Addressing Sudan's crisis is imperative for millions of lives. Second, if Sudan collapses, it could significantly destabilize Eastern Africa due to its strategic location, size, and population. A failed state would trigger a massive refugee crisis, similar to Somalia's collapse in 1991. Neighboring countries like Egypt, Chad, and Ethiopia would bear the brunt of this influx, straining their resources and stability. Moreover, a power vacuum in Sudan increases the risk of jihadist infiltration. The ongoing conflict between the SAF and RSF has already framed the struggle in Islamist terms, potentially attracting jihadists from other regions. If unchecked, Sudan could turn into an extremist stronghold, further destabilizing the Horn of Africa and echoing the post-Somalia scenario where jihadist groups like Al-Shabaab gain traction. While this conflict remains low on the international agenda due to its lack of direct threat to Western strategic interests, regional powers are engaged in a geopolitical race to assert influence in Sudan for their own national interests. The SAF has received support from Egypt and Iran. Egypt allegedly delivered Turkish TB2 drones to the SAF, while Iran supplied drones to bolster their military efforts. Meanwhile, the UAE has smuggled arms to the RSF via Chad, aiming to counter Islamist influence in the region. Surprisingly, both Russia and Ukraine are also involved. The Russia Wagner Group backs the RSF to secure access to Sudan's gold resources, vital for financing Russia's war efforts. In contrast, Ukrainian special forces are reportedly supporting the SAF to raise the cost of Russia's involvement, as Sudan's goal is crucial for funding Russia's war machine. Global attention is urgently needed to prevent Sudan's descent into chaos, as the consequences will undoubtedly ripple across borders, affecting countless lives. It is crucial for the international community to engage in proactive diplomacy and humanitarian efforts to avert a catastrophe that could reshape the region's future.